Hi, Jupiter.
What's up?
Just chilling at my girlfriend's beach bungalow.
What a girlfriend to have with an acoustic flying V at the beach bungalow.
She's pretty
So,
great.
well, she's awesome. Gotta be awesome because she's your girlfriend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm busy as usual and excited to talk about music with you.
Yes. Can you tell everybody watching who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Ursula Beatrice Stewart. I've been playing bass for over 25 years and I'm also a mother and a metalsmith. So I do a lot of jewelry work and I'm still in one current band and looking forward to a future of more projects. But at the moment, one band is pretty much all I can handle. But I've recorded on a bunch of albums and done some touring. And I'm in a place where mothering takes a lot of energy, but I'm looking forward to being a super hot MILF in my 50s touring the world. So
Yeah, completely within your grasp. And so sorry. Um, So when I first met you, you were, well, actually, the first time I saw you was an amazing moment, and I'll never stop telling this story because it's aspirational. Speaking of MILFs, Ursula's on stage.
oh, it's cutting out.
Tony stops the music to say, Ursula just had a baby. Her response is, she grabs her boob and she squirts the crowd with breast milk. And I was like, wow, who is this? It's like the best moment ever. I think I was standing there with Eric Harris from Gygax when I saw that too.
Yeah, those guys were really fun. And that was one of my favorite stage antics. And our singer, he never wanted any, but my drummer and guitarist would let me squirt milk at them or in their mouths, even. And the crowd always loved it. And they would always say that it tasted like horchata.
Hmm, okay. Is that like your specialty, or does all breast milk taste like this? I don't know.
I haven't really tasted anyone else's. But when you think of like stage show and like I think of like Guar with fake blood squirting, and like it
Yeah.
was just fun to have that for a couple years while I was breastfeeding.
And well, yeah, but Guar's was fake. Yours is
Yeah,
way cooler.
this was real.
Those guys are posers. Anyway, just kidding, guys. Um, yeah, and that was with
Yes.
and so if somebody wants to find T-Rox online, their music.
You can go to Spotify or YouTube Music, but look at T-Rox, and we have two albums, Balls Deep Holiday and Bow to the Pussy, are both available on Spotify.
And they are true rock and roll albums and totally amazing, just a circus of fun. And um, yeah, freaking love T-Rox. So, um, when did you first realize that you loved rock music and you wanted to create more of it?
Okay. Uh, so I've always loved music and knew I wanted to be a musician. And at a young age had said that I wanted to be Madonna when I grow up. But as my taste developed, I got more into heavier music, rock and roll, metal. But by age 13, I had been gifted an acoustic guitar from my parents, and I actually set it on fire with Aquanet hairspray and said, I want an electric bass. And I think my parents were scared that I was going to burn the house down. So that Christmas, my mom got me like a cheap P bass, Fender Precision, and I never looked back. I joined a band with my friend Matt Hermstad was a drummer, and he was like, "We need a bass player," and so I picked up bass and liked it much better than guitar. And since then, have been in many bands. That first band was called 66% Chick, and it was two girls and a guy, and then when I moved to Seattle in 2001, just started. I've never been without a band. In fact, that's a quote I'll say again is I can definitely go periods of time being single, but I've never been without a drummer. I feel like that rhythm section's important. So I usually am in a band no matter what. But even if I'm not in a band, I have friends I can go jam with. And it's just a really important part of my identity.
You know, I'm so glad that you said yes to coming on and doing an interview because you are such a unique personality and I'm so happy to help people like find you and hear you speak like beyond like your awesome music. You're just a totally interesting and different person. Like how many people can say that they've been single but never been like without a drummer like that? Just
I
you.
mean, it's priorities.
You're so funny. So, if your music were a movie soundtrack and you can blanket like all the music you've made, if it were a movie soundtrack, what would the movie be about?
Um, I mean, I'm really inspired by Jodorowsky and Holy Mountain and kind of surrealist, bizarre 70s films. I was in a metal band for 5 years called Black Queen, where I didn't write the music, but the music was all horror film soundtrack inspired, and we would actually take samples from horror films. But I'd say it would depend on the band. Like T-Rox, I see more of like a gender bending, kind of acid fueled, dreamlike film. But definitely a taste for the bizarre and dark yet also colorful, and not conventional.
That sounds perfect. That sounds
And I
perfect.
would love to do like a sci-fi soundtrack one day. So
Okay. Well, you know, I keep asking people this question, and I think all that we need is to like get connected to some film students and make some of these things come to life because I have heard some very good, fun ideas to that question, and yours brought a lot of variety to the answers as well. Um, so, and I would definitely watch that movie. Also, what you just described is a lot like this the visual movie aspect that you described for T-Rox is a lot like seeing T-Rox perform live. Honestly,
yeah,
you've
that's one thing
really
I
have
loved about that band was the element of performance art and stage show. I mean, you came on and danced with us, and we would have different dancers or performers show up, and that always gave it, that extra kind of spark.
it had spark. It had so much spark. It was so fun. I mean, and just the subject matter of the songs was so outrageous and so like different from what like every other band that I ever saw play at the Highline in Seattle. It was so unserious and it was so much fun because of that. And then at the same time it was like completely serious and it was sort of like some of Tony's subject matter was like derogatory towards the audience. And so different. Um, if you could collect any three vinyl records of all time, which would you like to have?
I That's a hard one for me because I have a huge record collection and I have a lot of what I want, but I once got to borrow a copy of Mr. Bungle's Disco Volante from someone, and they asked for it back. And of course I gave it back to them, but I've never found a copy of it again. So
Yeah.
any of the original, Mr. Bungle is one of my favorite bands. So either their self-titled Disco Volante or California. The Melvins are also a really important band to me, and I still don't have Lysol on vinyl, so I would like to have that. Um, and then I'm also a big fan of 70s progressive rock, and the band Magma definitely has some albums I don't have yet. Um, and honestly, I can't think of, they have their own language, and I can't think of the name of the album that I don't have that I want. But actually, Do the Music, one of their 80s albums, is kind of hard to find. And then another, I know you said three, but the band Art Bears with the singer Dagmar Kraus from they were based out of like Germany and I think London, but Winter Songs is a great album that I finally got a hold of, and I love that band.
I just wrote all of those down because, of course, I haven't heard of any of them, and which is what I hoped and expected from that. And already so excited to listen to them. 70s prog rock. Can't wait.
I did score Slayer Rain and Blood. I sell my jewelry at swap meets and I traded a guy some jewelry for his wife for Slayer's Rain and Blood, and I was so excited to get that into my collection.
Honestly, that's the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
I know he was the cutest, like older kind of cholo guy. And he was like, oh, my wife would love this bracelet and earrings. And, you know, it was the original Slayer Rain and Blood. So it was like $40. And I think he even paid me a little and traded the record. But
wow. Yeah, he got laid after that.
yeah.
um, so let's see if you could play a world tour with any three bands live today. Who would you choose?
So this was also a hard question to answer, but the Bay Area has a band called Glitter Wizard that T-Rox has played for and my band the Glutz has played with. And they are just so fun. And I love whenever I get to see them, and I would never get bored touring with them. I would want to see their show every night. I'd love to tour with would be the Melvins because they've been my favorite band since I was a teenager. And I once at an in-store record show, their bass player didn't show up. They asked if anyone in the audience wanted to play, and I raised my hand and they picked me and I got to jam with them. And Adam from Tool was on guitar, and it's actually on YouTube. I think it's oh God, what was the name of the record store? I'll have to think of that, but I've had people share the link with me, and it was early 2000s and I got up and played with them and they were totally cool. And
Wow.
can I say two?
Yeah.
Budos Band is an instrumental band from New York with a horn section and killer bass player. I love them. Just saw them in San Francisco. And then there's another band called Stare Baby with a drummer named Dan Weiss that's kind of more dark jazz. And I love their bass player Trevor Dunn as well. And it's just really interesting music. My girlfriend said it made her feel like her brain was going to explode. It's not for everyone. But yeah, Stare Baby and Budos Band are two other bands I would want to tour with.
Can you give us like three adjectives for Stare Baby? You've intrigued me.
A little off-putting, like it's kind of like a brain massage for a musician that likes odd time signatures.
Okay.
They kind of make you feel almost like unstable, but it's really beautiful and really well written and like top-notch musicianship.
Fantastic.
I wish there were women in any of these bands I mentioned. I'm realizing like there, and I know that there's plenty of bands with women that I love. But yeah, I'm sorry to say there's no women in any of the bands I mentioned.
Oops. It's okay. You can make up for it later.
Yeah.
Atone. So looking back on your life, what was a big decision you made that turned out to be a great choice?
So here's an interesting story. I played briefly in a band from Oakland and San Francisco. Their members were all in the Bay Area, called Heddersleben, and they were a progressive rock band that also, when Nick Turner from Hawkwind would play the US, they were his backing band. And so I met them playing with Nick Turner. They would open the show as Heddersleben and then stay on stage with Nick Turner and be his backing band. They hired me for the band. I would fly down to the Bay Area for rehearsals. And around that time, I started getting kind of baby fever. and decided I wanted to have a kid. I still recorded an album with the band, toured while pregnant, but when it came time for the Nick Turner tour, I was too pregnant to tour. And I got a friend of mine in the Bay Area to replace me, Jae Young Kim, who used to play keyboard for Secret Chiefs 3. If you know that band, you should know Secret Chiefs 3. They're kind of Middle Eastern inspired metal with Trey
Ooh.
Screwance from
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Bungle.
excited.
But I was sad because I was like, finally, I'm in a touring act with $100 a day per diem, and I'm living my dream. But I really wanted to have a kid, and I'm glad I still recorded with them and toured in the early part of my pregnancy. But I'm also so glad I had a son, and it's a decision that has definitely put touring on hold. I did bring him on tour with T-Rox when he was 9 months old. Also an amazing decision because I just have so many memories of my cute little baby being in the road with us.
Oh,
At
wow.
this point, he would get bored and not want to come. But even though I'm like kind of having to put bigger touring stuff on hold, I still have a local band, and I just believe that you're never too old to do anything. So I'm looking forward to like my 50s into my 70s playing till I die. So I just feel like 20 years to dedicate to my son is a really beautiful, life-changing experience. I think you should only do it if you really want to, and I totally respect women not wanting to have kids. I didn't want to for a long time, but it changed my life, and I think it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Mm. Well, you also have the cutest son. He's so adorable. And I'm super happy that you will be playing music until the very end so that I can still grab you and put you in one of my own bands. um we
That could happen.
almost had that and then I moved to Sweden.
I know.
Uh my fault. So what is a performance memory you will never forget?
Well, we talked about the squirting breast milk, which was definitely one of them. And another one in my band Sugar Skulls that I was in for 10 years in Seattle, our very first show, our drummer came down with the violent flu and was puking and diarrhea. And he was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I really can't do this show. I'll be like puking on the drum set. And we were all, it was a band that consisted of 3 women, and our drummer was a guy, and there was electric violin, keyboard, and bass. And our drummer was really busy, so we were used to practicing instrumentally without drums, and we went ahead and played the show without a drummer, and people were like, wow, you guys are so tight without a drummer. And like violin, keyboard, and bass was kind of a weird configuration, but we were like, well, we're used to practicing without our drummer, and so we could do it tight enough. But I was so nervous and so bummed out, but then the crowd was like cheered us on for still doing it, and I just remember feeling like really good about still playing and not canceling the gig.
Yeah, that is like I don't know, you always like just take the chances that other people I think would like hesitate too long and then they'd miss it and you always go for it. And so that's why you have like such amazing stories. Oh my gosh. Sometimes you also perform in Southern California at a porn star's house.
Oh yeah.
Are you still doing it?
Well, that was through our friend Nozomi, who was the drummer for T-Rox for a while. And I actually went to the party last summer to see her new band Klesha perform there. So we did that a few years in a row and had a blast. And it was really great, like having a, adult performer love T-Rox. And we really catered to her audience. The party loved us. And definitely some great memories playing for Sierra Lynch. She's a dominatrix and really amazing woman, and treated the bands well. I mean, she put us up in an Airbnb, paid us well, and it just felt really good to be recognized and appreciated.
Yeah,
And the parties were pretty wild.
I heard that the parties were super fun, and it sounds like a great audience for that music.
Yes.
Um, but also, I mean, like, yeah, how could you choose for like performance memories when you have so many ones? But that actually, the story about like just going ahead and playing without your drummer, I don't think like 1 in 1,000 people would choose to just go for it like you did, and I love that you did. What an
It was
icon. Do you have any new announcements?
Well, currently my band, the Glutz, which is Kian, who played guitar in T-Rox, um, we started a new band during the pandemic and also kept the drummer that we had in T-Rox, James Dyer, who's in another great band called Fruit Juice in Seattle. So we're in a band with my ex partner who was in thrash bands and punk bands. He became our singer because during the pandemic we were all kind of in our bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
And Kian was our neighbor, and my ex had sung in other bands, so we were like, hey, will you start singing for us? And then after a while we felt comfortable practicing with a drummer again. So it was, that band was kind of born out of a need to still express ourselves and create and play music during the pandemic. And sadly, T-Rox had just pressed our vinyl, and our album release was supposed to be like 2 weeks after everything shut down. So we still sold some vinyl online, but we never got to do our album release show. And just through the pandemic, we all had other projects. Tony, the singer, has a band, Lady, who are amazing. But Kian and I kind of started our own project, which is different from T-Rox, but similar in some ways. Definitely not as theatrical, but you know, good musicianship, kind of weird styles. Definitely a little more punk, but still has elements of metal and progressive rock. And so that band has saved up enough money to record. We just are getting ready to book the recording. We do have demos at our Bandcamp. I think it's the glutz.bandcamp. Let me double check what that is. So we have some demos, but they're definitely not the finished product yet. Kian also says hi, by the way. I told him I was doing this interview, and he was like, I think it's so awesome she's doing these interviews. So it's the glutz.bandcamp.com is where you can find
Can't wait to hear it.
our demos. And yeah, recording should happen this spring. So hopefully we'll have an album out by next fall. But Kian and I have started thinking, hey, maybe we'll try to get T-Rox back together. So nothing's set in stone, but we really still have a bunch of vinyl records, and we all loved that band so much. It was just kind of circumstantial that things fell apart. And so, you know, it could be in the stars that we get to do a reunion show or
Oh my gosh.
tour. And hey, if you're able to come to Seattle and sing backup, we would love to have you.
I'd love to be there. I'd love to. Oh, well, you answered the next question, which is where can we listen to your music, but where can people follow what you do?
So on my Instagram, it's Ursulabia 44. So like URSULABIA 44. And what I'm doing a lot lately is more metal work. I just had some pieces shown at Purdue University, and I'm entering work in a recycled arts festival because I am really passionate about the environment and using recycled metals, and I love melting down metal. I've definitely melted down some religious crosses and turned them into like boob necklaces, and that kind of alchemy is really fun for me. So
That's great.
more often than not, you would see on my Instagram jewelry stuff and posts about my kid. But I do have a show coming up for the Glutz. If anyone from Seattle is watching this, May 4th, we're going to be playing a festival at the Heron's Nest, which is a beautiful 3.5 acre land in West Seattle, located above the Duwamish Longhouse. And they've just, my partner runs a nonprofit that raise money to gift the land back to the tribe, the Duwamish tribe in Seattle. And this
Cool.
festival is going to be a fundraiser, but we actually had a generous donation from Macklemore, whose music I'm not that into, but that's going to help pay the musicians. But he seems like a nice guy, and he, supports this project. And so we're booking all kinds of bands and having a big show May 4th. It's going to be a festival with like 14 bands, and the Glutz will be there along with a native metal band from Portland called 1876.
Ooh.
They're like all indigenous, and it's like metal punk, I think. And then this band Moonletters, a local prog rock band with Dave Webb, who also plays guitar in they had to change their name to Low Life, and then I think they maybe had to change it again, but they were formerly oh my god, they were a really big thrash band in the 80s that reformed, and Dave plays in them. Cryptic Slaughter. Have you heard of Cryptic Slaughter?
Have not.
Okay, so he was in that band. And then their drummer, who now plays for Ozzy Osbourne, found out Cryptic Slaughter reformed. The guy's playing drums for Ozzy and tries to sue the band for keeping the band name. So Cryptic Slaughter had to change their band name because their old drummer, who you're like, that's the kind of stuff in rock and roll where I'm like, man, you got the best gig. You're drumming for Ozzy Osbourne. Why do you care what your old bandmates are doing, But I think it's that LA, like, if you're in LA, you try to sue people or something. I don't know.
That's it for questions, but the show's not over yet because we have to play
Oh,
the game.
oh
So,
yeah.
and I don't know if you've gotten to see any other episodes, but the game is always the same. I will hold up a pair of vinyl, and you will pick between the two, and you will tell us why you chose the one that you did.
Okay. Let's see. We've got
Oh, it's Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell. I actually don't know Diane Davidson.
Well, actually, she covers a Joni Mitchell song on this album. The first song on side 2, Carrie. Oh man, side 2 of this album is just like the music you listen to when you're drunk on a beach and like you either like just fell in love or just got dumped. It could go either way. So
Well, I spent the last year falling in love and getting drunk on beaches. So I pick that it's something I've never heard before. I do respect Joni Mitchell and love her for who she is, but I'm always curious about discovering new artists. So I would pick Diane Davidson just to listen to it for the first time.
I mean, obsessed I am. It's like Appalachian folk. And
Oh,
yeah, and there's like a film student that is working on a documentary about me. Don't know why, but this will be the soundtrack for the documentary.
well, I can tell you why I think you are a true Renaissance woman. I mean, I feel like I've got a good handle on music and my metalwork, and I want to find a third passion. I still, and I admire this about you, I sometimes have a harder time connecting to my physical body, and I want to find either a dance or a martial art that I can really dive into, and I haven't done that yet. I do feel like motherhood is another job of itself, but I do think you embody the Renaissance woman, having 3 things that you're really good at that are all pretty different. So I'm not surprised that someone would want to make a film about you.
Um, oh yeah, you're gonna have so much fun when you figure out whatever that physical thing is. But motherhood is definitely a physical thing too. But yeah, I know it's gonna be something quirky and totally off the wall when you figure out whatever it is. Um, okay, so Fleetwood Mac or Janis Joplin?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I love Janis Joplin, but Rumors really has a lot of memories attached to it for me, and I would have to pick Fleetwood Mac. I mean, Stevie Nicks and Janis are so different, but there's something really ethereal about Stevie Nicks where she transports you to another place, where I feel like Janice is more earthy
Mm.
and kind of grounding and gritty and like gets you to the depths, whereas I feel like I can go out to like another dimension with Stevie Nicks.
You know, that was a wonderful description of the two of them. One smells like chamomile and the other smells like patchouli. Possibly. Okay. So, Yoko Ono or Jefferson Airplane?
Yoko Ono. I know some people don't dig her, but she's just a freak. And I do remember in art school seeing a video of a performance art piece she did where she got up on stage and would let the audience do whatever they wanted to her. Have you seen this?
Yeah, it's called
And
Cut.
yeah, and they start cutting her dress and doing, and I was just like, what a brave woman. And you know, people can say whatever they want about her breaking up the Beatles, but I'm sure John Lennon was like, this woman is next level, out of this world, whatever. Like I respect her. I, you know, there's some things kind of maybe that she's done that are a little gimmicky, but she found her niche, and I think she's an amazing artist and a true artist.
You
And
know,
I, you know, Jefferson Airplane's great too. So I don't want to no diss on them, but personally I pick Yoko Ono.
um, yeah, it's a very hard choice between the two of them. For one thing, I want to say something that makes her very distinct from, say, like Courtney Love, is that she's comfortable with male identifying. She doesn't care if you say she's John Lennon's ex or something like that. Whereas Courtney Love is like, don't call me Kurt Cobain's ex, which, you
Yeah.
know, makes sense to me. And I remember when I learned about the performance cut as well, I thought that it wasn't that crazy. And as I got older, I realized how crazy it was because I learned how crazy people are.
Yeah. I mean, it was such an interesting experiment, and I just think she was ahead of her time.
I also hate the Beatles, so I'm glad she broke them up.
Yeah, I it's funny because as a kid I liked them, and now, I mean, as I got older I realized how overrated they were and how people gave them so much more attention, and there's so many artists that don't get enough accolades or props, and I feel like the Beatles just got too much focus and attention.
Yeah, and I don't know, the British invasion, I think, kind of derailed rock history from its roots. So I don't appreciate them for that. Um,
I see that
okay,
too.
Bonnie Tyler or Shaka Khan?
Hands down Shaka Khan. I actually don't know that Bonnie Tyler record, but the Prince cover "I Feel for You" is one of my favorite love songs. Shaka Khan is goddess icon. I'm really sad she came to Seattle. I think it was last summer or the summer before she played the Zoo Tunes, and I'm really sad I missed her, but total inspiration and such a beautiful woman and performer. So yeah,
Yeah,
I love that album.
the
I'm so
other.
glad you're picking women artists. This is great
Oh,
because
yeah, my whole record collection is female fronted. I don't own any male fronted band records.
oh wow,
It's a
awesome.
rule. I also only
You got to
own.
check out Art Bears, that band I mentioned.
Okay, I wrote it down. Here it is, circled. Shaka Khan, her Stevie Wonder song is the romantic song for me. Through the fire to
Oh yeah.
the it's just like a thing.
Oh, Tina Turner. Yeah, that was that kind of, is that early 80s?
Uh, Probably. Trying to find a date on one of them, but well, anyway, yeah. So
Yeah, Tina Turner, another total inspiration.
absolutely. Yeah, Shaka Khan. Woo, she's so good. All right. And then, oh, so about this Bonnie Tyler album. Oh, yes. And also, the point of this segment is that we end up talking about women in rock history. So, the best song on this is It's a Jungle Out There. It's really got some rhythm.
I will have to check that out.
It's a jungle. Bonnie Tyler.
I did recently score a Plasmatics record, Wendy O. Williams. I think it's called Maggot or Maggots. I don't know. I bought it at one of the flea markets I was selling jewelry at, and Wendy is one of, I think, rock and roll's great, you know, definitely not. I feel like she's underrated. I feel like there should be more attention given to Wendy O. Williams and how ahead of her time she was.
Yeah, and I often think about like what has made Doro Pesch the queen of heavy metal. And like there are better heavy metal singers like Yuta Weinhold. And there are other blondes who have like gotten their boobs out on stage because that's how Doro got famous from her ripped vest incident, where she did like
Okay.
she did like a Janet Jackson and like whoa, and then she was in every issue of Kerrang magazine or every magazine like Kerrang.
Mhm.
Oh, who's the other guy that did that? Well, there's this. It doesn't matter. Yeah, and I just think, didn't Wendy just do it so much more and on like another level? So I'm always like, how did this? Well, you know what? I guess that queens are not elected. So
Yeah.
Susie Quattro,
Oh,
Pat
Susie
Benatar.
Quattro, Pat Benatar. I would go Susie Quattro, and I love Pat Benatar, but from what I understand, Susie Quattro really wrote a lot of her own music, and I just look at that guitar first. Is that a BC Rich maybe? Wow. Yeah, no, Susie Quattro is such a badass, so I would pick her.
She also played organ on this album.
Oh wow.
And what is cool about her is like she might have been the first woman on the cover of Rolling Stones in 1975, which is the
Oh
year that
wow.
the Runaways formed. And so like everything Joan Jett wanted to be. Susie
Mm-hmm.
Quatro, the OG Susie Q.
Yes.
And she wore her leather jumpsuits on stage for every performance because she said then her clothes stayed in place while she was performing.
Hmm.
So very utilitarian, but she said that she discovered that it was her look when she went to do a photo shoot, and she told the photographer that she wanted to wear leather. And he said, no, that's outdated. It's too much like Elvis. And she said, well, what if it's a jumpsuit? And he said, maybe that'll work. And when she saw these developed images, because it wasn't digital those days,
Yeah.
of course, she realized that it was a sexy look. And so then she was like, so
Mm.
sex appeal. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's it for the show.
Awesome.
Yeah, but thank you so much for coming on. It was such a treat to be able to talk to you and ask you these kinds of questions.
Yeah, it's great for me to think about these things and great catching up with you. And I'll definitely, if a T-Rox reunion is on the horizon, I'll give you plenty of notice in case you want to take a trip to Seattle.
That is what I'd take a trip to Seattle for. So yeah, do keep me in the loop, and if there's any announcements that you want to make or anything like that, let me know and we'll schedule another episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and this was really great.
My pleasure. Bye.
Right on, rock and roll. Bye.